Today, I'm going to present to you why monogamy matters for the cultural and societal stability of humanity. And I'm going to give you a brief overview from a review made by Nolan Knowles on J.D. Unwin, who published a book called Sex and Culture in 1934. And he dedicated himself to study the relationship between sexual freedom and cultural development. He studied 80 societies and found that any human society is free to choose two options. It can display great energy, meaning virtue and honor, technological advancements, or it can enjoy sexual freedom, meaning selfishness, doing what you want, which in of itself is satanic. But it cannot do both for more than one generation. And all of this comes down to whether a society values sexual monogamy or not. What does this imply? Where there is sexual constraint, in other words, chastity, the value of loyalty, commitment, marriage, this leads to cultural flourishing. More families develop, more love and trust is built, men and women grow closer to each other, a foundation is being built. But if we tell people to pursue sexual freedom, which is what came about in the 1960s with the sexual revolution, it always leads to cultural collapse. And what we are seeing in the West is no different than what happened previously with the ancient Greeks or the Roman Empire. But it takes 3 generations to see these changes reach their climax. What does this mean? Prenuptial chastity is the decisive factor in cultural success. Why? Because men are the builders and founders of society. Where men go, society follows. The reason why men today are lost, confused, they're going on the internet, researching how to be a man, they're looking up all these weird, wacky terms that are coming out, an alpha male, a sigma male, a beta male. Why men are putting their identity in materialism is because men lack responsibility. And the only way for men to regain authority and strength and honor is by coming back to the family, by creating a legacy, by committing themselves to a woman and raising children and instilling in them godly values. In doing so, these men will regain a sense of duty, a role to fill, and a responsibility to uphold. And that is how men can regain respect. But most men are motivated by sex. And if they can get it without marriage, they contribute less to society. It's a sad state of affairs when a young man can simply go on the internet and look at tens of thousands or potentially millions of images of women in very inappropriate ways. This was unthinkable 2-3 generations ago. And there is a reason why so many men are not going out there searching for a good woman. Obviously, other than having health problems that we see today because of lower testosterone, it is a spiritual thing that is going on. Men are deeply entrenched in sin. They are lost. They have become degenerate. And with that lifestyle, there's a price to pay, which is shame and guilt. Hence why so many young men shy away from the responsibility of commitment. They don't even know where to begin because they don't know how to even be a man. But men that value commitment, men that want to lead a woman and protect her and provide for her, contribute more to society because they live sacrificially for their wife. They would die for their children. They build healthy and stronger communities. They actually care about the society they live in. But if a man is living for himself, why would he care about what happens around him? So what Unwin found in his studies of societies was cultures that sustained chastity for 3 generations exceeded all other cultures in every area. economically, so better finances, more profound art, healthier families, more inventions, more progress, more technological advancement. So, which were these societies? There have only been three: the Athenians, the Romans, and the British. These were the world's most powerful empires, and there's something you can learn about their creation to their downfall. Abandoning chastity, in other words, removing sexual purity from the foundation of society, leads within 3 generations to abandoning God, monogamy, and rational thinking. Once you reject the Creator, you don't have an understanding of what love is, you don't know how to live, and you don't have a healthy respect for what is objectively right or wrong. This leads for you to reject the union of man and woman. You reject commitment. You reject family. You reject raising children. You tend to deviate more towards unnatural sexual pleasures and fetishes that are unconstrained, which are damaging. And finally, you lose rational thinking. When you live like a degenerate, it starts to affect the way you see the world. You are out for yourself. You are living for the flesh, which eats away at you. You effectively go insane. You become confused. And as it says in the book of Romans in Scripture, when you reject God, he gives you up to your own delusions. For if you do not retain God in your mind, you will fall away. So let's understand this. Sexual liberation isn't progress. It's regression and degeneracy. To all the men watching this in the future, would you want to know that your daughter is going to grow up to meet a good man and he will protect and provide for her? Or would you be happy to know that your daughter is going out there into the world and there are men out there like vultures who are going to prey on her and rip her apart? I see a lot of guys tell me all the time, Christian, I'm so afraid of having a daughter. What if she's raised badly? Well, what about raising your son right as well? Because men and women both have to take accountability. Because embracing this sexual freedom, where we tell young men and women to hook up, sleep around, indulge in pornography, have fun, be with whoever you want, but then get married when you're older. There's so much baggage emotionally, even physically, that comes with that you can't bond. The reason why sexual liberation is not progress is because it makes people focus on their own wants and needs. This is the opposite of how great societies have been built. When you live for God, when you live for family, when you stay in your gender role that works, you live sacrificially. You do everything for those around you. You sacrifice for your community. You sacrifice for your family. You sacrifice for your country. You sacrifice for God. But if you're only focusing on you, why would you care what happens with the world around you? And when a culture becomes that weak, that's when it becomes conquered by other cultures who have greater energy, stronger virtue. Because there is a fine line, a time lag between sexual freedom and cultural collapse. It's predictable. So one generation can live off the values generated by the previous monogamous one. So if there is a generation, and we see this maybe 1 to 2 generations ago, where they were still raised on marriage, commitment, loyalty, masculine men, feminine women, right? Traditional family values. That's passed down to those children. They're still raised on that. But then with the sexual revolution, that started to change. What are children raised on now? Polygamy, doing what you want. You kind of don't need to be married if you want to. Go out there and sleep around, hook up, explore, live for yourself, be independent. That has changed. So one generation can pass on some of the virtue to the next one, but that second generation will not pass it on to the third if those values have started to fade. So when we look at Rome, before it fell, there was a pattern there towards the end of its empire. Sexual opportunity was extended to everyone. There was all sorts of degeneracy, promiscuity. Marriage fell out of fashion, right? Promiscuity became more popular. There was no reason for men and women to be together. In fact, women were encouraged to be independent, to not need a man. We look at the authority of a husband and of a wife in the home. These rights were qualified by the government. They tightened their control over the citizens of what they could say and do. And then, of course, nationality, the nationalism of Rome fell. And then what happened? They were conquered by, well, they claimed to be the barbarians or the Teutons, who were 100% monogamous. Funny how that works. But then if we look at the West today in the 2020s, we look at countries in the Western Europe, such as the UK, France, Germany. We see the US and Canada. What's going on? We have sexual freedom now, don't we? LGBT, hookup culture, pornography, polyamorous relationships. People can do what they want, right? Everything's encouraged except monogamous commitment to one spouse. Marriage now is seen as outdated. You turn on any movie, you go to Netflix, any TV series, any show, even the music, husbands are mocked. Any young girl who says, I want to be a wife and a mum, she's laughed at. She's told that she's weak or she's a slave if she chooses to marry a man and follow his lead. We see fewer couples marrying. And those who do marry tend to do it in an older age, meaning they have less children, so their birth rate's lower. Then we see women who are misled by feminism. We see the boss babe culture, where femininity is mocked, right? They're encouraged to go out there and do it all on their own, and you don't need a man. The ones who do want to be traditional are shamed for it. And we look at all the restrictions now that is happening to parents. We see children that are educated by government institutions where they are raised on degeneracy. Parental rights are being erased from the legislature. This is happening in real time in the West. We see Western hegemony is fading, right? Multiculturalism, loss of national identity. Christianity has been ripped from its roots in the West. So the sexual revolution of 1960 gives us 3 generations to see complete cultural collapse of the West. 3 generations is 100 years. So that gives till about the 2060s. And we're already getting there closer by the day. However, this can be turned around. This generation has an opportunity to look back at history and learn from it, go back and relearn traditional values, faith, and men and women need to start honoring and loving each other again. It's time to put an end to degeneracy and bring back monogamy.